What started as a routine flight quickly turned into an unforgettable lesson in respect, consequences, and redemption. When Karen refuses to sit next to a black woman, she demands special treatment, but instead, she sets off a chain of events that no one could have predicted. A spilled drink, a shocking reveal, a confrontation that brings the entire plane to a standstill. And just when she thinks things can't get any worse, the real fallout begins. Losing her seat was just the beginning. Her job, her reputation, her entire life shaken by a single moment of arrogance. But is it too late for Karen to change? Or has she already gone too far? Stay tuned for a story full of unexpected twists, powerful moments, and a final choice that will decide everything. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this one. Karen clutched her designer handbag and marched down the narrow airplane aisle, her face twisted in disapproval. The plane smelled like recycled air and desperation. Flying coach was beneath her, but the first-class tickets had been outrageously priced. As she approached her seat, 17B, she halted abruptly. Sitting in 17A was a well-dressed black woman, casually scrolling through her phone. Karen's face darkened, as if she had just spotted a cockroach in her five-star hotel suite. "No, absolutely not," she muttered under her breath. Angela, the woman in 17A, glanced up. Her sharp brown eyes met Karen's glare, and she smiled politely. "Good evening," Angela said. Karen ignored her and spun toward a nearby flight attendant. "Excuse me, I need another seat," Karen demanded. The young flight attendant, Lisa, blinked in confusion. "I'm sorry, ma'am." Karen sighed dramatically. "I can't sit here. Move me." Lisa scanned the passenger list. "I'm afraid the flight is full. There are no available seats." Karen folded her arms. "I don't care. Find a solution." Angela raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. The tension in the air thickened. Passengers nearby started to pay attention. A mother with a child in the next row turned to her son and whispered, "Some people just love making a scene." Lisa smiled professionally. "I'll see what I can do." She stepped away. Karen huffed and turned to Angela. "You could move, you know." Angela smirked. "Oh, but I love this seat. Great view." Lisa returned, pushing the beverage cart. "While I check with my supervisor, would you like something to drink?" Karen waved a dismissive hand. No, Lisa smiled. Then, as if guided by fate itself, her hand accidentally tipped a full cup of orange juice directly onto Karen's pristine white blouse. A collective gasp rippled through the cabin. Karen shrieked. "Are you kidding me?" Lisa grabbed napkins, feigning concern. "Oh no! I'm so sorry. Here, let me help." Karen yanked the napkins away. "Unbelievable." She spun around, her fury blazing. "That's it. I want to speak to the pilot." Angela chuckled softly. "Good luck with that." Lisa kept her professional demeanor. "Of course, ma'am. I'll let the captain know about your discomfort." Karen glared at Angela, then at Lisa, then at the growing number of passengers watching with fascination. She had intended to have someone else moved. Instead, she had become the show, and the flight had barely begun. Karen sat stiffly in her orange, juice-stained blouse, her fury simmering just beneath the surface. Around her, passengers whispered and smirked, some pretending to be absorbed in their phones while sneaking glances at the unfolding drama. The flight attendant, Lisa, had already vanished toward the cockpit to inform the pilot, though Karen suspected it was just a ploy to stall her demands. She exhaled sharply and turned toward Angela, who had resumed scrolling on her phone, completely unfazed. Karen clenched her jaw. How could this woman remain so calm? Wasn't she embarrassed? Annoyed? Anything? "You think this is funny?" Karen hissed. Angela barely looked up. "A little." Karen's nostrils flared. Before she could fire back, another flight attendant appeared this time, a tall, broad-shouldered man named Ryan, his crisp uniform neatly pressed. He held a tablet in one hand and gave Karen a polite but firm smile. "Ma'am, I understand there's an issue with your seating?" Ryan asked. "Yes, there is." Karen snapped. "I need to be moved immediately." Ryan nodded and tapped at his tablet. "Let's check your booking details." He scanned her boarding pass, his eyebrows knitting together. That's odd." Karen frowned. "What?" Ryan tilted the screen toward her. "According to our system, this ticket isn't valid for this flight." A hush fell over the surrounding passengers. Karen blinked. "What are you talking about? I booked this flight weeks ago." Ryan tapped the screen again. "I understand, ma'am, but this ticket is actually for tomorrow's flight." He glanced up at her. "You weren't supposed to board this plane." A wave of disbelief crashed over Karen. "That's ridiculous. They scanned my ticket at the gate. They let me in." Ryan gave her a calm but knowing look. "Mistakes happen, ma'am, but unfortunately, you're occupying a seat that doesn't belong to you." Karen shook her head violently. "No, no, no. There must be a misunderstanding. I am not getting off this plane." Angela chuckled under her breath. "You wanted a new seat. Maybe you'll get one, just not on this flight." Karen whipped her head toward Angela, eyes blazing. "Stay out of this." Angela shrugged. "You made it everyone's business the second you started yelling." Ryan sighed and motioned toward the front. "Ma'am, I need you to come with me to sort this out." Karen stayed planted in her seat, arms folded. "No." Ryan's expression didn't change. "If you refuse to cooperate, we'll have no choice but to call security." Karen's stomach twisted. Was this really happening? "Do it," she spat, calling their bluff. "Call security." "I'm not moving." Ryan exhaled through his nose and nodded. He reached for his radio. "Captain, we have a situation. Passenger in 17B refuses to leave despite an invalid ticket." Karen's breath hitched. The captain? Surely they wouldn't. The intercom crackled to life. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We apologize for the delay. It seems we have a passenger who boarded the wrong flight. While we sort out this issue, we ask for your patience." "Thank you." A ripple of murmurs spread through the cabin. Karen felt every pair of eyes drilling into her. Ryan lowered his radio. "Security will escort you off the aircraft." Karen's mind raced. If they forced her off the plane, she'd be humiliated. She had to think fast. Then a thought struck her. She straightened, smoothing her blouse. "Wait. Maybe I do have the wrong ticket," she said sweetly. "But can't I just stay? The seat's already empty." Angela snorted. Now she wants to stay? After all that? Ryan shook his head. "That's not how it works, ma'am." Karen's face turned red. She glanced around, desperate for an ally. A few passengers stared with pity, but most were entertained. Some were even recording. "Fine," she snapped, grabbing her purse. "I'll go." She stood, humiliated, as Ryan stepped aside to escort her out. But just as she moved toward the aisle, "Wait," Angela said suddenly. Karen paused, her heart thudding. Angela smirked and reached into her blazer pocket. A metallic glint caught the cabin lights. She held up a police badge. "Be before you go," Angela said slowly. "I should probably inform you. I'm an officer." The cabin fell dead silent. Karen's stomach dropped. Angela's voice was cool, calm, and just a little too amused. "And you just caused a public disturbance." Karen felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on her, and she knew this was far from over. Karen's breath caught in her throat. "A police officer? She's a cop?" Her mind reeled as she stared at the badge in Angela's hand, its golden surface reflecting the cabin's fluorescent lighting. The murmurs around her grew louder. Some passengers gasped. Others whispered excitedly, clutching their phones as they continued recording. Angela leaned back in her seat, tilting the badge slightly as if admiring it herself. "You know," she mused, Causing a disturbance on a flight can be considered a federal offense. Karen's knees nearly buckled. "I didn't." Angela turned to the flight attendant, Ryan. "Do you want to press charges?" She did refuse to comply with airline policy. Ryan hesitated. "Well, we usually just let security handle it," but Karen's face burned. "This is ridiculous. You're not even real law enforcement. That could be fake." Angela's smirk didn't waver. "You're right," she said casually. "Maybe I should call for backup so they can verify it for you." She reached into her pocket again, pulling out her phone. "Or better yet," she continued, her eyes gleaming, "I can just let TSA know that you were acting aggressive toward crew members. They love dealing with passengers like you." Karen's stomach twisted into knots. This couldn't be happening. The mother from the next row leaned toward her son and whispered just loudly enough for Karen to hear, "See, sweetie, actions have consequences." Karen clenched her jaw. "You can't arrest me," she snapped. Angela shrugged. "No, but the real officers at the gate can." She placed her badge back in her pocket. "And trust me, TSA doesn't take kindly to people who refuse to leave a plane when asked." Ryan crossed his arms. "Ma'am, you have two choices. Walk off this plane now, or be escorted off in handcuffs. Your call." Karen's hands balled into fists. She had never been treated like this in her life. She was used to respect. She was used to getting her way. Her eyes darted to the cockpit door. The pilot. If she could just plead her case to the person in charge, surely they'd see reason. Ignoring the growing tension, she pushed past Ryan and stormed toward the front of the plane. "I demand to speak to the captain," she yelled. Ryan barely had time to react before the cockpit door swung open. A man in a crisp uniform stepped out. His name tag read Captain Harris. He took one glance at the situation, the livid woman, the smirking officer, the dozens of passengers filming, and sighed. "You must be Karen," he said dryly. Karen straightened. "Yes. Thank goodness. You're in charge, right? Can you please remove this woman from my seat so I can fly in peace?" Captain Harris stared at her, unimpressed. "You mean the woman who actually has a ticket for this flight?" Karen's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "This is unbelievable," she spat. "I will be calling corporate about this airline's terrible service." Angela chuckled. "Let me know how that goes." Captain Harris sighed and turned to Ryan. "Has security been called?" Ryan nodded. "On their way." Karen felt the air leave her lungs. "You're making a mistake," she said, her voice trembling. "I have rights." Captain Harris folded his arms. "Yes, you do. And so do the paying passengers who deserve a smooth flight. You're holding us all up, ma'am." Karen's fingers twitched around the strap of her purse. A voice from behind called out, "Just get her off already." Another passenger chimed in, "I have a connecting flight. Move." A wave of agreement spread through the cabin. Karen's pulse pounded. In her ears. She turned back to Angela, her last shred of defiance flickering in her eyes. "You think this is funny?" Angela smiled. "No, but I do think it's justice." Just then, two uniformed security officers appeared at the entrance of the plane. Karen's world shrank. This wasn't just a minor inconvenience anymore. This was real. And for the first time, she realized she might not be the one in control this time. Karen's heart pounded as the two uniformed security officers stepped onto the plane. The taller one, a broad-shouldered man with a firm expression, adjusted the radio on his belt. The other, a woman with sharp eyes, scanned the cabin before settling her gaze on Karen. The tension in the air was suffocating. Angela sat back in her seat, arms folded, her expression calm but amused. Captain Harris remained by the cockpit door, watching the situation unfold with practiced patience. Ryan, the flight attendant, gestured toward Karen. "That's her," he said simply. Karen's stomach twisted. "This is completely unnecessary," she hissed. "I'm leaving." The male officer, whose name tag read Officer Jenkins, nodded. "That's good to hear, ma'am. We'd prefer to resolve this without any further incident. Karen straightened her spine, trying to maintain some shred of dignity. "I'm the victim here," she muttered, grabbing her purse. Angela let out a quiet laugh. "Of course you are." Karen shot her a glare, but didn't dare respond. She could feel the eyes of the entire cabin boring into her. Some passengers openly recorded, their phone screens glowing like tiny spotlights of humiliation. The mother from the next row leaned over to her son again and whispered, "See? This is why we treat people with respect." Karen clenched her teeth so hard her jaw ached. She took a stiff step toward the exit, but the security officers flanked her, guiding her path. The movement felt less like walking and more like being escorted out of a courtroom in disgrace. Then, a voice rang out from the back of the plane. "Wait a second." Karen froze. A young man stood up. He was dressed casually, with dark sunglasses perched atop his head. He looked vaguely familiar, though Karen couldn't place him. The man smirked. "Do you recognize me?" Karen narrowed her eyes. "Should I? Oh." The man turned to Angela. "I don't know if you remember me, but you changed my life." Angela's eyes widened slightly. Then recognition flickered across her face. "Oh," she said. "It's you." Karen's confusion deepened as murmurs spread through the cabin. "Who was this guy?" He gestured toward Angela. "This woman? She gave me my first job. She saw potential in me when no one else did. I wouldn't be where I am without her." Karen scoffed. "And who exactly are you?" The man grinned. "I'm Jason Carter." The name sent a ripple of shock through the passengers. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered, "No way." Karen's face remained blank. "Who?" Jason chuckled. "Wow. You really don't know? I'm an actor. I just won an award last month." A nearby woman pulled up her phone and turned the screen toward Karen. Sure enough, there he was on the cover of a major magazine, smiling confidently. Karen's stomach dropped. Jason turned to the security officers. "Can I just say, if you guys do arrest her, that would make some great viral content." Laughter rippled through the cabin. Karen's humiliation deepened. Officer Jenkins cleared his throat. "Let's keep this professional, folks." Karen turned to him desperately. "I just want to leave." Jenkins nodded. "Then, let's get moving." As they guided her down the aisle, she kept her head down, her face burning. She could hear the passengers whispering, the occasional snicker, the click of cameras capturing her disgrace. Just as she reached the exit, the intercom crackled to life. "This is your captain speaking," Harris's voice rang through the speakers. "We'd like to apologize for the delay. Unfortunately, some passengers forget that respect is a two-way street." The passengers erupted into applause. Karen clenched her fists. As she stepped off the plane, she swore she'd never fly this airline again. What she didn't realize was that the airline had already made the decision for her. The airport terminal was colder than Karen remembered. Or maybe it was just her nerves. She stomped through the jet bridge, the click of her designer heels drowned out by the murmurs and whispers trailing behind her. Even after she stepped into the terminal, people still stared, some snickering, some holding up their phones, others whispering behind cupped hands. She knew exactly why. The moment she had stepped off the plane, the entire internet had exploded with her humiliation. And she hadn't even checked her phone yet. Karen tightened her grip on her purse and marched toward the nearest airline service counter. If she could just file a complaint, maybe she could turn this around. A young woman in a crisp airline uniform smiled at her from behind the counter. "Good evening, ma'am. How can I assist you?" Karen exhaled sharply. "I need to speak to a manager about the outrageous way I was treated on that flight." The woman's smile didn't waver. "Certainly. Can I have your name, please?" Karen straightened her shoulders. "Karen Wexler." The woman's fingers flew across the keyboard. Then her smile faltered slightly. Karen's stomach twisted. The woman glanced up. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but it appears that you've been placed on our restricted traveler list." Karen blinked. What? It means, the woman continued, keeping her tone professional, that you will not be able to book or board flights with our airline in the future. A cold sensation spread through Karen's chest. You're banning me? The woman nodded. Yes, ma'am. This decision is final. Karen's nails dug into her palm. You can't do this. This is discrimination. I was the victim on that flight. I was the one who, the woman tapped a few more keys, then turned the monitor slightly so Karen could see. On the screen was a still frame from a video that had already gone viral. It showed her, standing in the airplane aisle, yelling at Angela. Her expression twisted in rage. The caption above it read, Karen versus the police officer on a plane. Guess who wins? The video had over 3 million views. Karen's stomach dropped. She snatched her phone from her purse and opened her social media notifications. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through the countless messages, tags, and comments flooding her accounts. Trending topics. Karen on a plane, justice for Angela, no. Fly Karen. Karen's breath quickened. This wasn't just bad, this was a nightmare. She clicked on one of the videos. The clip started mid-argument. I can't sit next to her, her own voice screeched from the screen. Then it cut to Angela's calm response. Oh, but I love this seat. Great view. The crowd erupted into laughter. The comments were even worse. Lunasky 25. Imagine embarrassing yourself this badly in public. Couldn't be me. Jet Set John. Guess who's gonna have to take the bus from now on? LOL. Reality Check 101. This woman really tried to play the victim while harassing a police officer? The audacity. Karen's hands shook. She exited the app and turned back to the airline employee. There must be something I can do, she said through clenched teeth. A complaint to corporate? A letter to the CEO? The woman gave her a patient smile. Ma'am, if you'd like to contest your status, you may submit a written appeal through our legal department. Karen exhaled in relief. Good. And how long will that take? The woman's smile widened. Between 6 to 12 months for processing. Karen's relief shattered. 12 months, she screeched. The woman nodded. Yes, ma'am. And even then there's no guarantee of reinstatement. Karen opened her mouth, ready to argue, but then a familiar voice spoke behind her. Well, fancy seeing you here. Karen's blood ran cold. She turned slowly. Angela stood there, suitcase in hand, watching her with amused eyes. Looks like you're grounded, Angela said smoothly. Karen clenched her fists. This wasn't over. Not yet. But deep down, she knew she had already lost. Karen stormed through the airport, her heels clicking angrily against the polished floor. Her mind raced. This can't be happening. This is a joke. A nightmare. She needed to regain control of the situation, of the narrative of her life. Pulling her phone from her purse, she scrolled through the endless notifications. Every second, more comments flooded in. Every second, her name became more synonymous with humiliation. To Fly Tyler. How does it feel to be the most hated person on the internet today? Karma served cold. She really got banned from flying because she didn't want to sit next to a black woman? Poetic justice. Flight Attendant 101. FYI. Every airline shares restricted traveler lists. Hope she enjoys road trips. Karen's breath hitched. Every airline? No. That couldn't be true. She tapped furiously, searching for answers. Within seconds, her stomach twisted into a knot. Articles were everywhere. Woman thrown off flight for racist outburst now facing airline bans. Internet declares. No fly Karen should take the bus from now on. Angela Carter speaks out after flight incident. Respect is a two-way street. Karen's fingers trembled as she opened the last article. It featured a picture of Angela standing outside the airport, giving an interview. She looked as calm and composed as she had on the plane. I wasn't looking for a confrontation, Angela had said. But I wasn't about to be disrespected either. I hope this situation serves as a reminder that kindness and decency should never be optional. Below the article, the comments were relentless. Real talk, Rachel. Angela handled that with pure class. Meanwhile, Karen was out here throwing a tantrum. First class only. The fact that she got herself banned from an airline over this? That's commitment to stupidity. Karen felt her pulse pounding in her ears. This was spiraling out of control. She needed to fix it. She stopped abruptly near a row of empty chairs in the terminal and did what every person caught in a public scandal seemed to do. She opened her camera app and hit record. The front-facing camera flickered to life. Her face appeared on screen, slightly disheveled from the chaos, but still poised. She took a deep breath and began. "Hi, everyone. I just wanted to come on here and clear up some misconceptions about what happened on my flight today." She forced a sad sigh. "First of all, I was extremely stressed. Flying can be overwhelming, and I was just trying to get a little comfort. I never meant to offend anyone." She tried to look remorseful, tilting her head slightly. "I'm sorry if my actions were misinterpreted. I think there was a misunderstanding, and honestly, I feel like I've been unfairly judged." She pursed her lips, trying to summon a tear. Nothing came. She glanced down at the trending hashtags and decided to try a different tactic. Cancel culture has gone way too far. I'm being harassed, my privacy is being invaded, and for what? A simple seating issue? This is ridiculous. She ended the recording and quickly uploaded it. Within minutes, the response was overwhelming, but not in the way she had hoped. Justice for Angela. Wow. So now she's the victim? Classic. Cancel culture isn't real. Lady, you didn't get canceled. You got consequences. Try again, Karen. She really said misunderstanding after yelling on a plane? LMAO. Karen's hands shook as she scrolled. The video wasn't helping. It was making things worse. Then a notification popped up. Angela Carter has responded. Karen's stomach dropped. She clicked on the post. Angela had simply shared Karen's video with a single caption. Accountability isn't harassment. The comment section exploded with support for Angela. The more Karen scrolled, the more she realized there was no undoing this. Her name was now a permanent fixture in the hall of internet shame, and there was no escaping it. Karen woke up to the sound of her phone vibrating nonstop on the nightstand. She groaned, rubbing her temples before reaching for it. The screen was flooded with notifications, news alerts, missed calls, and dozens of unread messages. Her viral meltdown was no longer just an internet spectacle. It had crossed into her real life. She hesitated before opening her email. The first subject line hit like a punch to the gut. Termination of employment, urgent notice. Her breath caught. She tapped on the email with shaking fingers. Dear Ms. Wexler, due to recent events that have garnered significant public attention, we regret to inform you that your employment with Wexford and Company has been terminated, effective immediately. As a company that upholds diversity, inclusivity, and professionalism, we cannot condone behavior that contradicts our core values. Your severance package details are attached. Please return all company property by the end of the week. Sincerely, Mark Reynolds, HR Director. Karen's vision blurred as she read the email over and over again, hoping she had misunderstood. Fired? Her company had cut her off just like that. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from her country club. Karen, due to recent events, the board has decided to revoke your membership. Please refrain from using club facilities moving forward. Management. She gritted her teeth. They banned me? Over a video? Slamming her phone onto the bed, she marched to the mirror, staring at her reflection. Dark circles clung beneath her eyes, her skin pale and clammy from stress. This wasn't supposed to happen. She had spent years building her reputation. She had a high-paying job, a perfect social circle, a prestigious club membership. And now she was nobody. Desperate, Karen grabbed her phone again and dialed the only person she could think of, her lawyer, Gregory Shaw. After a few rings, a calm voice answered. Karen, I was expecting your call. Karen exhaled in relief. Thank God, Greg. You have to help me. This whole situation is out of control. A pause. Then, Karen, I don't think I can. Karen's stomach dropped. What? You're my lawyer? Greg sighed. I was your lawyer. But my firm has decided we can't represent you anymore. Too much bad publicity. Karen nearly dropped the phone. Bad publicity. Greg, we've been friends for years. I know, he said, his tone almost apologetic. But my hands are tied. Look, I'll be honest, your case isn't winnable. The airline had every right to remove you. And as for your job, well, employers have reputations to protect. Karen's blood boiled. So that's it? You're abandoning me like everyone else. I'm sorry, Karen. Another pause. Then, quietly, maybe it's time you start reflecting on how you got here. Click. Karen stared at the phone, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Greg was her last lifeline. And now, she was completely alone. A few hours later, she braced herself and stepped outside for the first time since the incident. Big mistake. The moment she reached her car, a voice called out, "Hey, look! It's no-fly Karen." She whipped around to see two teenagers filming her from across the street. "Did you drive here?" "Oh, wait, you have to now," one of them laughed. Karen's hands clenched into fists, but she ignored them, fumbling with her car keys. She had never felt this exposed, this hated. As she climbed into the driver's seat and slammed the door shut, her phone buzzed again. Another news alert. She hesitated before looking. Angela Carter announces book deal. Respect is a two-way street. Karen's face turned red. Angela, that woman, was turning her humiliation into success. The unfairness of it all burned inside her. But deep down, a small, terrifying thought crept into her mind. Maybe Greg was right. Maybe this wasn't about Angela. Maybe this was about her. Karen sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. The world outside felt too loud, too overwhelming. She could still hear the laughter of the teenagers fading in the distance, their voices echoing inside her head. No fly Karen. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing herself to block it out. The news alert about Angela's book deal still glowed on her phone screen. Respect is a two-way street. What a joke. Respect was supposed to be something she deserved, not something she had to earn. She swallowed hard, her throat dry. Her entire life had crumbled in a matter of days. First, she had been publicly humiliated on a flight. Then, she had lost her job, her country club membership, even her lawyer. And worst of all, she couldn't stop it. Her hand trembled as she reached for the ignition. But before she could start the car, her phone buzzed again. Another call. Another unfamiliar number. She almost ignored it until she saw the voicemail transcription flash across her screen. "Karen, it's Mom. Call me back. Now." A cold weight settled in her chest. Her mother never called her first. Ever. With shaky fingers, she pressed dial. The phone barely rang twice before a clipped voice answered. Karen. Karen braced herself. "Hi, Mom." A heavy sigh came through the receiver. "I just got off the phone with Aunt Diane. She said your name is everywhere. What on earth have you done?" Karen stiffened. "Nothing. I was set up." Her mother scoffed. "Set up? Oh, give me a break." "Karen, I watched the video." Karen's stomach dropped. "Mom, what were you thinking?" her mother cut in. "Behaving like that? On an airplane?" Karen clenched her jaw. "I just wanted to be comfortable. Is that a crime now?" "Oh, don't start with that nonsense," her mother snapped. "This is exactly why people are calling you entitled. And now, because of your behavior, you've lost your job. Do you know how humiliating this is?" Karen flinched. "For you? For both of us? Do you think people don't know you're my daughter? Do you think my friends haven't been calling me nonstop?" Karen let out a bitter laugh. "So that's what this is really about. Your reputation." Her mother sighed again, this time with exhaustion. "Karen, You have always had a problem with admitting when you're wrong. Karen's grip on the phone tightened. I am not wrong. Then why is the whole world against you? Silence. The words struck harder than Karen wanted to admit. She opened her mouth, ready to fire back, ready to defend herself, but nothing came out. Because, deep down, she knew the answer. For the first time, she let herself really think about it. The flight, her tantrum, the way Angela had stayed calm while she had spiraled, the way people had responded not just on the plane but everywhere. This wasn't some grand conspiracy. This wasn't about cancel culture. This was about her. The truth settled in her chest like a stone. Her mother's voice softened. Karen, you have to own this. The longer you fight it, the worse it gets. Karen swallowed hard. And if I don't, then you'll lose more than just your job. You'll lose everything. A lump formed in Karen's throat. She wanted to hang up. She wanted to pretend she hadn't heard any of this. But for the first time in her life, she couldn't. Because she knew her mother was right. Karen Wexler had finally hit rock bottom. And there was no one left to blame. Karen sat in her car long after the call with her mother ended. The engine was off, the air inside stifling. Yet she didn't move. Her hands rested in her lap, still and useless. She had spent the past few days fighting the internet, fighting the consequences, fighting the truth. But now, the fight had left her. Her mother's words replayed in her mind. You have to own this. The longer you fight it, the worse it gets. Karen had spent her life refusing to be wrong. The idea of apologizing had always felt beneath her. But now she had nothing left to protect. And if she was honest with herself, she wasn't just exhausted, she was ashamed. She inhaled deeply and picked up her phone. Her fingers hovered over the screen before finally typing in the name she had been avoiding. Angela Carter. Her profile popped up instantly. Blue checkmark. Thousands of new followers. The words author, advocate, speaker in her bio. Karen hesitated. Would Angela even listen to her? After everything? Her thumb hovered over the message button. But before she could press it, another notification appeared. A new post. From Angela. Karen's heart pounded as she clicked it. It was a short video. Just Angela sitting in a chair, looking directly at the camera. People keep asking me if I feel sorry for Karen, she began. If I forgive her. If I think she deserves all of this backlash. She paused, then gave a small sigh. I'll say this, no one deserves to be harassed. But accountability? That's different. If she truly wants to move forward, she has to take responsibility. And that's on her. The video ended. Karen swallowed hard. There it was. The challenge. Would she take responsibility, or would she keep pretending she was the victim? Her hands trembled as she backed out of Angela's profile and opened a new app. She had made a video before, a pathetic attempt at playing the victim. It had backfired spectacularly. This time it had to be different. She steadied herself and hit record. I've spent the past few days in denial, Karen began, her voice quieter than usual. I told myself that I was the one being treated unfairly, that people were overreacting, that I was the victim. She exhaled slowly. I was wrong. The words felt foreign in her mouth, but once they were out, she couldn't stop. I was rude. I was disrespectful. And I let my own biases cloud my judgment. The way I treated Angela was unacceptable, and I should have never spoken to her or anyone the way that I did. She shifted slightly, glancing down. I've lost a lot because of this, but the truth is I did this to myself. And I am truly sorry. She hesitated for only a second before continuing. Angela, if you're watching this, I don't expect your forgiveness. But I do want you to know that I see my mistakes now. And I will do better. She ended the recording before she could second-guess herself. Her heart pounded as she stared at the screen. This was the first real apology she had ever made in her life. And now it was time to let the world see it. She took a deep breath, then hit post. Karen pressed post and immediately set her phone down, her hands clammy with nerves. It was out there now, For the first time in her life, she had admitted she was wrong not just to one person, but to everyone. She wasn't sure if it would be enough. The internet was ruthless. Would people believe her? Would they think she was only apologizing because she had lost everything? A part of her knew the answer. Of course they would. Because if the roles were reversed, Karen wouldn't have believed it either. Still, the apology was real. She had meant every word. Now, she had to wait. Her phone vibrated. Then again. Then continuously, as notifications poured in. She hesitated before picking it up. The video had already been shared thousands of times. The comment section was flooded. Some were skeptical. No second chances. Too little, too late. Seen this before. She's only sorry because she lost her job. Reality check. Funny how people suddenly find self-awareness when it affects their bank account. Karen swallowed hard. But then there were others. Forgiveness matters. I don't know, this actually feels genuine. Maybe she really does regret it. Change is possible. If we don't allow people to grow, then what's the point of calling them out in the first place? It starts here. Holding people accountable is important. But if they own their mistakes, we should allow them to do better. Let's see if she follows through. Karen exhaled, tension easing slightly from her shoulders. Maybe, just maybe, there was still a way forward. Then, the notification Karen had been dreading appeared. Angela Carter had responded. Karen's pulse spiked as she clicked on the video. Angela was seated at a desk, looking straight into the camera. Her expression was unreadable. "I've seen Karen's apology," she began. Karen held her breath. "I'll be honest. When I first saw her name trending, I didn't think she'd ever take responsibility. But watching that video, I saw something different." Angela folded her hands together. "I saw someone who finally understood the weight of their actions. Someone who wasn't just apologizing to save face, but because they knew they had messed up." Karen's chest tightened. "Do I forgive her?" Angela continued. "Not yet. Forgiveness isn't instant. But I do believe in change. And I believe people can grow if they're willing to do the work." Angela leaned forward. Slightly. "So, Karen, if you really mean what you said, prove it. Not to me. Not to the internet. But to yourself. Show us who you really are." The video ended. Karen stared at her phone. Angela hadn't fully forgiven her. But she also hadn't shut the door completely. For the first time in days, Karen felt something she hadn't felt since this nightmare began. Hope. She knew she couldn't erase what had happened. She couldn't make people forget. But maybe, just maybe, she could prove that this wasn't the end of her story. Not as no-fly Karen. Not as the woman who had been banned, canceled, and humiliated. But as someone who had finally, truly learned. And that was the real first step. Karen's story is a reminder that accountability matters, but so does growth. We all make mistakes. What defines us isn't the fall, but whether we choose to get back up and do better. Do you believe people can truly change? Let us know in the comments. And tell us, where in the world are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story and want more powerful lessons like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for more amazing content.